These are here indeed. It is the world's most feared helicopter, and for very good reason, like we're going to tell you. The Apache helicopter, in service with the US Army and with a reputation for devastation in conflict areas around the world, has now been commissioned into the Indian Air Force, making India the 16th country to operate this legendary war helicopter. It is being seen as a major boost to the Indian military's air combat capabilities. 8 US-built Apache A64E attack helicopters, the ones you see on your screen, were commissioned into the Indian Air Force's 125 helicopter squadron in Pathankot today. Indian Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa was the chief guest during the induction ceremony at the Pathankot Air Force Station. The Apache is one of the world's most, if not the most advanced multi-role combat helicopter. The choppers can take on 128 targets in less than a minute. It can also detect 256 moving targets in a 50-kilometer radius at the same time. It is capable of performing its devastating missions both in day and night and in all weathers. Pilot seats are crash-proof, and these are helicopters built to withstand small arms fire up to 12.7 millimeters. If you fire a 23 millimeter cannon at either the engine or the rotor, the helicopter will survive the hit. That's how brutally built these helicopters are. The Indian Air Force had signed a multi-billion-dollar contract with the US government and Boeing in September 2015 for 22 of these helicopters, just under half of which were commissioned into service today, and the remaining will be delivered by the end of next year.
Apache attack helicopter is being purchased to replace the aging Mi-35. Apache helicopter is an advanced multi-mission helicopter that is being operated worldwide. It is capable of performing many missions: escort to special heliborne operations, anti-armor operations, suppression of enemy air defense, and battlefield airstrike roles. It has been a part of numerous historic campaigns worldwide. Today, with the induction of the Apache A64E, the IAF has upgraded its inventory to the latest generation of attack helicopters. The Apaches will enhance the operational capability of the Indian Air Force as a strike force.
Apache is today the most modern attack helicopter of the world. There are about more than 2,000 helicopters flying all over the world in more than 18 countries, and which have participated in several conflicts and successfully. So this induction of Apache into the Indian Air Force is going to give it a great boost in operational capability, which none other platform has given till now.
So these are the first 8 of 22 Apaches that are coming to the Indian Air Force. These are the A864 Echo variant, the same variant used by the US Army, the most technologically advanced variant of the Apache. These Apaches have some of the latest technology, some of the latest radar, and some of the latest weapons technology on them as well.
When you're up against the Apache, they say you're out of options. You can run, you can hide, but none of that will do any good. Because what you're faced with is a beast that just won't stop coming. And now the big arrival. Many breaths were held as the giant aircraft landed at Pathankot Air Base carrying a historic load. Inside its cavernous belly, the world's most advanced attack helicopter for the Indian Air Force. The iconic A64E Apache, proven in conflict worldwide and recognized as the scariest combat copter ever built, will be operated from the Hindon base for a few weeks until they shift to their new home at the IAF's Pathankot base. Unlike the black-skinned Apache in operation with the US Army, the Indian Air Force Apache sports the signature Tipness grey like all of its combat aircrafts. By next year, the IAF will receive 22 Apaches worth $1.4 billion. The fleet will be split. While one half will operate from Pathankot for operations along the Pakistan border, The other half will be deployed in Jorhat, Assam to take care of the China front. An inaugural batch of IAF pilots have been training at the US Army Aviation's premier flight facility at Fort Rucker, Alabama, and will begin flying their new birds very shortly. But the Apache is no showpiece. Once the ceremonials are done, the dust will be all set to fly. The Indian Air Force Apache comes devastatingly armed. Not just with Hellfire missiles, rocket pods and a demonic chin-mounted cannon, but with the formidable Stinger air-to-air missile to keep aerial foes at bay while the helicopter goes about its work. Operating from Pathankot, these helicopters will play a massive role in checking Pakistani ground movements. Even in contested airspace, enemy tanks or vehicular convoys will stand fully vulnerable on the Apache's hawk-like watch. Half of India's Apaches will come fitted with the longbow fire control radar that converts the already formidable chopper into a precision hunter-killer machine that can see through obstacles and track enemies in the most difficult environments. For India, the Apache is here. Bureau Report, India Today.
So you've seen those, slightly docile pictures of those helicopters on the ground. But boy, are you mistaken if this helicopter is anything but docile. In this next report, I'm going to unveil for you pictures that are very rarely seen. The Apache in action. The reason why this report is special is because nobody ever sees the Apache coming. It comes out of nowhere. It can sneak up upon its targets, whether you're a terrorist or an insurgent, ISIS or the Taliban, from Iraq to Syria to Afghanistan. Take a look at this report. This is real, not recreated footage of the Apache doing its devastating job.
Roger, we're observing personnel with weapons down behind barriers. We're preparing to engage in hellfire at this time.
Look closely at these pictures. This is an undisclosed location in Iraq in 2008.
Easy 6, easy 3-6.
The shadowy figures you see, insurgents on the move late at night. They think they've got the cover of darkness.
Okay.
But something devastating has them in its sights. And before they know it, they've been vaporized by hell unleashed from above.
3-6, this is 6.
Now shift your attention to Afghanistan. A lone Taliban terrorist is visible here, attempting to sneak up on an establishment of the International Security Assistance Force. Failing to penetrate the location, he attempts to retreat, clueless that he's been spotted by a pair of eyes in the sky. And before he knows it, what we've just witnessed are two instances of swift destruction, courtesy the most terrifying helicopter ever built. The AH-64 Apache, the most brutal armed weapon platform with the US Army and 15 other nations. The latest operator, India. The Apache that the Indian Air Force welcomed into service today at Pathankot happens to be the most advanced version of a helicopter that began service over 3 decades ago. The AH-64E in Indian Air Force service is a full-fledged beast that will give Indian Air Force pilots all of the devastating capabilities the Apache has demonstrated over the last decades. For instance, this video footage from a US Army Apache's infrared sensors while hovering at a standoff distance, pinpointing a pickup truck and some Islamic State insurgents, with intelligence confirming that the men on ground are indeed from the Islamic State. The pilot has permission to engage. And remember, he's nowhere close to the target.
We are inbound hot. Roger. Point forward, we are inbound hot.
The Indian Apache comes formidably armed with all of the weapons you've just seen deployed in these combat videos. From the M230 chin-mounted chain gun to the devastating laser-guided Hellfire missile. The Indian Apache, in fact, can also protect itself from other aircraft, as it comes armed with Stinger air-to-air missiles. But the true brain behind the Apache's terrifying reputation is in its sensors and fire control system. Unified in the longbow system that will be on half of the Apaches, India is inducting. The longbow radar allows the Apache to hover at distances and even target from beyond the horizon line or from behind obstacles. A huge advantage to stay survivable in an area that could pose a threat from the ground. Battle proven and with scars of war, the Apache is now in India. Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, I want to bring in our senior executive editor, Gaurav Sawant, who's in on this in a moment. We'll be joined by Abhishek Bhalla, defense editor from the Pathankot Air Base, where these amazing helicopters have just been inducted. Gaurav, game changer in many respects. You and I have, grown up watching the Soviet-built Mi-35 helicopters in the Indian Air Force. This is a legacy leap in many ways, and Pakistan in many ways has been put on notice because Pathankot, as we all know, is also chosen to be the home of the Apache because it's closest to the international border.
Shiv, spot on. Look at the message that India gives out, and India is actually bleeding Pakistan in an arms race. We are getting the latest aircraft, we are getting the latest helicopters, we are getting the latest tanks. What's Pakistan getting? Precious little. It's on the verge of bankruptcy, and this is something that will deter Pakistan from waging war against India, even asymmetric warfare, because the Apaches looks at the enemy across the horizon. So even when the Pakistani, it needn't be a Pakistani tank, it can be a Pakistani vehicle, it can be a vehicle, a B vehicle. You look at that vehicle and you can take it out at a distance, and you can scan over the horizon, you can acquire multiple targets simultaneously. So if you're getting 22 of these helicopters in the Indian Air Force, and 11 of those will be armed with the longbow radars, it's a game changer, Shiv.
It's a game changer in many ways. Imagine the kind of brains on this helicopter that permits it to look over the horizon, acquire a target from behind an obstacle, behind a building, to make sure it cannot be hit by ground fire, and still be able to take out with pinpoint precision any kind of a target. A terrorist vehicle, like Gaurav said, an army vehicle, a tank. This is a helicopter that has a reputation for being the most feared with it. If you've got an Apache on your tail, chances are you're not going to come out alive. Abhishek has been down at the Air Force Station in Pathankot. Abhishek, fantastic, historic day there of coverage by you down in Pathankot. We've told our viewers about the capabilities of the Apache helicopter, but what was it like being there with the pilots, Abhishek? Because, the Indian Air Force has been used to operating the old Mi-35s, also beautiful helicopters, but from an older generation. The Apache is something completely new. Everything is going to change for these pilots.
Well, it was a big moment, Shiv, earlier in the day, and even Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa, a huge moment for him. He hangs his uniform later this month, and at the fag end of his career, to make sure that an induction like this takes place. And yesterday, the Air Chief Marshal was there flying the MiG-21 trainer along with Wing Commander Abhinandan. That was very strong messaging. Just a day before the induction of the Apache, he chose to flew with Abhinandan. And obviously now what officers told me that the way forward is to make sure that Apache is part of war games, it's part of drills, it's part of military exercises, so that the pilots are combat ready as early as possible for any threat, be it from the Pakistani side or from the Chinese side.
Very interesting, because Gaurav, we've ordered 22 helicopters. There is a misapprehension, I would say, that 22 is a very small number and we need more. While on the one hand, we are acquiring more of these helicopters, the numbers might actually increase. The army is also getting some more. But correct me if I'm wrong, Gaurav, considering what force multipliers these helicopters are, even these small numbers pack a real punch, and that's why the Indian Air Force wants to deploy them on both the western sector as well as the east.
You're absolutely right, Shiv. Yes, 22 may be, small in numbers. We have a vast country to protect.
Yeah.
We have adversaries on two borders, and the very presence of these Hepters or new aircraft that are coming in, the Rafales will start coming in. Now, together, they're a big game changer in more ways than one. Well, there is a possibility of the number going from 22 to a much bigger number in the times to come. But then you cut your clothes according to the cloth.
Correct.
So as of now, you have funds for these many. Should the situation warrant, more will come in. At the same time, it's the nature of the beast that with a fewer number of aircraft, you can do much more than you did with larger numbers earlier, Shiv.
Absolutely. You can do much more with even these smaller numbers, because remember, these are expensive pieces of equipment. They aren't to be treated lightly, but the Indian Air Force, like Abhishek said, will be using them in exercises as well. Abhishek, do we know by when we will see the Apaches? I know for a fact that the Indian Air Force, will be rolling them out quite slowly. They have to be careful to get used to them in a phased sort of manner. But do you have a sense, did the pilots give you a sense of when we may see the Apaches in their first exercise in India?
Well, I asked that specific question, but what officer said is that the pilots are ready, and as of now, no such exercise has been planned. But in the course of time, of course, they will begin their drills. They've already been training over the last few months, so they are battle ready. It's not as if they have to get into these helicopters to train themselves.
Yeah.
They are fully trained to operate them. But yes, as far as a formal exercise or a war game is concerned, it is yet to be scheduled.
Okay, thanks very much, Abhishek and Gaurav, for that. The Apaches are here, and we wish the Indian Air Force and the helicopter squadron down in Pathankot happy landings and, of course, happy hunting.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.